Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You mentioned in your opening remarks that the conflict in the Middle East came up here at ASEAN. Mm-hmm. Some of the leaders have been critical about U.S. stance with regard to Israel and Gaza. What were some of the criticisms that you heard from leaders, and what did you tell them to perhaps reassure them of progress toward a ceasefire? And on Lebanon, the latest there, Netanyahu is putting pressure on the citizens of Lebanon to choose a new leader, threatening them with Gaza-like, quote, destruction and suffering if they do not put Hezbollah out of power. Do you believe the onus is on the Lebanese people to overthrow the terrorist group? And if not, would the U.S. support Israel in taking actions in parallel to what they've done in Gaza? And if I may, on Gaza, the Biden administration has said the U.S. is having, quote, urgent conversations with Israel to ensure humanitarian aid reaches Gaza, specifically northern Gaza. Is the U.S. willing, in compliance with the Leahy law, to put restrictions on U.S. military aid to Israel if the U.S. determines that Israel is in fact blocking the delivery of humanitarian aid?
Good. Thank you. So I don't want to speak for other countries, except to say that, yes, and as I mentioned, the overall situation in the Middle East, as well as specific pieces of it, came up in many of the conversations that we had. And I think there's deep concern across the region on a number of fronts, but primarily something that we're deeply concerned with, which is trying to prevent the conflict in Gaza that started with the horrific attacks of October 7th from spreading, from going to other places and other fronts. And one of the things that I reassured many of our colleagues about was the intense focus of the United States, which has been the case going back a year, in doing just that, preventing these conflicts from spreading. And we're working on that every day, whether it's with regard to Lebanon, whether it's regard to Israel and Iran, the Houthis, the various actors. Unfortunately, what we have is, among other things, a so-called axis of resistance led by Iran that looks to create other fronts in different places. We're working very hard through deterrence and through diplomacy to prevent that from happening. There's also obviously deep concern that we share about the plight of children, women, and men in Gaza, who for now a year have been caught in a terrible crossfire of Hamas's instigation. And for us, this has been a constant area of emphasis, trying to make sure that they're getting the assistance that they desperately need. And we're intensely focused on that question now. And I have real concern about the inadequacy of the assistance that's getting to them. This is particularly true in the north, but not exclusively in the north. So we've been very directly engaged with Israel on the imperative of addressing the humanitarian needs of people in Gaza. And when it comes to the law, I'll simply repeat what I've said all along. We will apply the law. I have a continuous obligation to ensure that assistance we're providing is done in accordance with the law, whether it's the Leahy law, whether it's international humanitarian law, whether it's other things that we're responsible for. And I've also made clear, and we've made clear that that's an ongoing responsibility and one that I take very seriously. Finally, with regard to Lebanon, look, one of the main challenges that we've seen in Lebanon is the fact that Hezbollah effectively has taken over many state functions, and in particular, in holding on to its arms, which is not supposed to be the case. Remember, Israel was in southern Lebanon for a long time, 18 years, and it got out in 2000. And part of getting Israel out of Lebanon were important understandings that are in UN Security Council resolutions 1701, 1559, that, among other things, would make sure that forces are not up at the border between the country, certainly not irregular forces like Hezbollah, and non-state actors are supposed to be disarmed. Well, that didn't happen. And Hezbollah has posed an ongoing threat to Israel ever since. When the horror of October 7th happened, the next day, Hezbollah joined in, trying to create another front. In the process, the rockets and other munitions that they were launching into northern Israel forced people to flee from their homes. And some 70,000 Israelis have had to leave their homes. Similarly, in southern Lebanon, because Israel responded to these attacks from Hezbollah, you have many people who had to leave their homes. This is well before the last few weeks. This is what happened over the last year. And we all have a strong interest in trying to help create an environment in which people can go back to their homes and live there safely and securely, and kids can go back to school. So Israel has a clear and very legitimate interest in doing that. The people of Lebanon want the same thing. We believe that the best way to get there is through a diplomatic understanding, one that we've been working on for some time and one that we're extremely focused on right now. Now, Israel has a right to defend itself against terror attacks coming from Hezbollah, from Hamas, from anyone else. But it's also vitally important that in doing that, they focus on making sure that civilians are protected and, again, are not being caught in a terrible crossfire. So that's another area of concern. When it comes to Lebanon's future, this is for the Lebanese people to decide, not for anyone else, not for any outside actor, whether it's the United States, Israel, or any of the many actors in the region. But it's clear that the people of Lebanon have an interest, a strong interest, in the state asserting itself and taking responsibility for the country and its future. The presidency has been vacant for 2 years now. And for the Lebanese people, having a head of state would be very important. But that's for the Lebanese to decide and no one else. We've been engaged in conversations, I've been engaged in conversations with countries throughout the region and with the Lebanese themselves. And what I'm getting from these conversations is a strong desire, not only on the part of many countries that are concerned about Lebanon, but especially the Lebanese themselves, to actually see the state stand up, assert itself, take responsibility for the lives of its citizens. And again, one way to do that would be by resolving the issue of a vacant presidency. But there are a number of other things that I know the Lebanese are focused on that can make a real difference. But it's fun. It's up to them. It's their country. It's their future. The United States, many other countries want to help. We provided almost $160 million in additional humanitarian assistance to try to help the many displaced people. And many of the displaced are from the Shia community. We want to make sure that their needs are addressed. Similarly, we've long been a supporter of the one institution that unites pretty much every Lebanese, and that's the Lebanese Armed Forces, and many other countries as well. So I think there are a number of things that others can do to support the Lebanese state, standing up and taking responsibility for the people and for the future of the country, but the fundamental decisions about how that gets done, those decisions belong to the Lebanese people.
Final question.
I'm sorry, what was the?
Would the U.S. support Israel Netanyahu follow through on that threat that the Lebanese people would face definitely destruction?
I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I can just say we're focused on resolving the border situation diplomatically and supporting whatever the Lebanese choose to do in terms of the state asserting its responsibilities.